Hello and welcome to episode 18 of the Guinness World Records Gamers podcast. I'm your host Mike Plant, and with me as ever is our records manager Luke of the gaming variety.
Hello.
And our pair of video games journalists, Jack Turner.
Hello.
And Andy Loughlin.
Hello.
Good to see you guys after our week off last week. I was dying with flu, so we took a week off. But we didn't miss much. No, we did. We missed a lot. So we'll be going through last week's news and some bits from this week, and then also the usual bits from the show, including what we've been playing on the record and a listener tweet. So if you want to catch up on the rest of the show, the previous 17, then just Google GWR Gamers Podcast. You should find us on YouTube, on iTunes, and all the other places where you'd expect to find a podcast, Spotify as well. And yeah, let's get on with the show. Alright, so as I say, we're going to go through some of the things that happen. Actually, no, should we start with what we've been playing? I think that's what we want to get stuck into, isn't it? Right, okay.
Let's do that.
Should we start with Sekiro?
Oof. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we can.
So, you've not played it, have you?
I have.
You have played it? So,
yeah,
okay,
yeah.
So the three of us have been giving Sekiro a stab, as it were. Oh, there's a joke for you. Starts the show well.
Brilliant. Yeah.
Yeah, who wants to start, Jack?
Well, I guess I'll start. So Sekiro, for anyone who doesn't know, is the latest game from Software, who make Dark Souls, Demon Souls, Bloodborne, basically really hard video games. And in that vein, Sekiro, pretty hard.
Yeah.
Like,
still hard.
Luke's, I imagine Luke's probably finished it by now, or
No, I'm going to say that very hard too.
Yay! So it's called Shadows Die Twice.
Yes.
My shadow has died plenty of times.
So it's a ninja-based game, right? It's kind of based in ancient Japan, or that sort of style.
Kind of the folklore-y.
Yeah.
Like it's not quite real world.
So it feels slightly more grounded than a traditional From Software game. It's not as fantasy-like.
Well, it's still got a lot of supernatural stuff flying about in there as well to creep you out.
Yeah, but it's not overtly out there, is it?
There's not as many crazy monsters as you'd find in Bloodborne.
Yeah, so most of your enemies are.
Man, I've only seen the first boss.
First area.
So could be anything.
But I feel like it does. It's hard.
There's weird giant cockerels.
Massive cockerels. And massive. And some of the.
Keep it together. Keep it together.
So some of the concessions it makes is you are more.
Sorry. This is the most fun you've had playing this.
You're more mobile in this game, right? So
Do you want one of us to take over there?
Luke, what's your experience of the game?
Well, when it comes to these From Software games, I'm always kind of enticed into them because they're always, they've got such a rabid fan base, and they're always sort of labelled as these hard experiences that you've really got to sink your teeth into. But I just do find them so sort of oppressively difficult most of the time. Yes, you're more mobile in this one. You've got no stamina meter, and you only have one weapon. You've got your sword, and that's it. You don't swap out for different weapons.
Shinobi arm.
And you got your sort of shinobi prosthetic, which can be equipped with lots of different tools and stuff. But I think it still is the sort of same From Software formula, where it's like, right, I've got to make myself through this particular area, so it's between the bonfires or shrines in this instance, and it's like finding the optimum path of doing that, or maybe sort of grinding for the XP type stuff between the two.
Yeah.
I think, the combat system is a lot different, isn't it, in this instance?
Well, what's different for me is I never used to lock on to the enemies.
Yeah.
Whereas in this game, you really have to lock on to have much of a fighting chance. So it's all about rebuffing their attacks, like what they call it, deflecting, don't they?
Oh, it's deflect,
and every battle basically is on how well you can have that split-second twitch reflex to parry.
Well, it's kind of like a rock paper scissors type thing, because they'll either do a lunge where you can have to dodge out of the way,
or you can do that thing where you can jump on their
weapon,
which is even trickier to think, okay, now I have to press circle instead of normal parry.
But if they're doing a sweeping attack, you have to jump on their head, and then you can do a sort of posture break on that front, or it's just a simple case of deflecting if lots of attacks are coming in. So I mean, there's a lot to sort of learn, I guess, in terms of the actual basic combat. Then there's the stealth system, which I actually quite appreciate in this.
Well, the stealth is clever. So if the enemies know roughly that you're in the area, they'll have like the yellow triangle above them, but you can still stealth attack them when they're in that mode.
Yeah, it's Far Cry.
But it works really well because you can still do like your death blows, which is what you can one hit most enemies, except bosses, which annoyingly have 2 death blows. Like why they can survive being stabbed through the chest when everyone else can't.
It is a bit strange when you sort of see the animation of the sword going all the way into them, and you're just like, okay, so nobody would survive. It's still they go, "Raw, get back up again," and
except
keep going.
Apparently some really fat bad guy in certain
It's just a scratch.
He's just got lots of armor on. That's fine.
But I do like the stealth aspect of it because it gives me, as a terrible Souls player, more of a chance. Because you can kind of, if you take your time, you can sort of cheese it. And you can creep round, take out the enemies, and also you've got a grapple, which we've not talked about yet. So you can zip up to the tops of trees and just hide until everyone forgets.
Very good for running away.
Exactly.
Just like, this isn't working. I'll run away for a bit.
What I like is that the music, when they've spotted you, the music gets all pulsating. And then you sit there listening to that music for about 2 minutes until like they go, oh, actually, it's probably gone by now.
It's that old video game thing of you cause absolute mayhem, then you hide behind the wall, and everyone just goes, it was probably nothing. All these bodies, probably natural causes.
What I would say, the bosses, they don't really forget you there. It's like that's the most annoying thing. They kind of always remember that you're in the area. So if you then come into anywhere near them, they'll charge back after you again. There's the guy with I've played so many hours into the game, and yet I'm barely scratching the surface. So I'm up to. You have flashbacks in the game. Have you?
The Hirata Estate.
Yep. So I'm in the Hirata Estate, which is very early on in the game, from what I understand. I mean, I found it, so it must be. And there's this guy with like a trident, and he's like a heat-seeking missile when he comes. Like once you've death attacked him, what they call death blow. Once you've done that to him once, and he has another, so you have to get him twice. He never seems to forget I'm there. The music just goes on. I've waited for like 20 minutes.
I don't think you can stealth them twice. The sub bosses. I think you have to just keep like.
In fact,
face them at one point.
That big guy. I don't want to give too much away, but it's an early boss. But the big guy with all his mates in the flashback.
We're talking about the big fat guy.
The drunkard. The drunkard.
So you can stealth him once. He loses a pip of health, so he has 2 pips. I did that, and then I ran off. I came back, and he has pip back.
Yeah, they do. They regenerate that pip.
I
was furious.
Swine.
How is this fun? Like, it is
addictive, though. It's
it
weird.
It feels good. It plays really well.
It's because of the.
So you have to kind of like play it in manageable chunks. You're just like, all right, I'm going to do my best at getting through this bit to then take on the sub boss. And if you fail, you just sort of keep going back, and it's that repetition. I think that's the thing that it's a game that's not for me. I think I can't get into these Souls like Sekiro games because I just find it like it's draining far too much attention from me. I think I just like having like power trip games where it's just like I'm so overpowered and I'm just flying in and just it's all hectic and nonsense. Whereas this, you have to be really sort of particular and considered with your approach each time.
It's weird because Bloodborne is my best frame of reference for these games because it's the only one of them I've ever actually managed to finish. I've played them all, but I've always been quite rubbish apart from at Bloodborne. And Bloodborne, you do in the end get quite overpowered and kind of godlike because you've charged, you've maintained your weapon, you've upgraded it, you've got loads of health by the end. Even though the enemies are getting harder, you're just able to deal with them a lot easier. This game feels like you're quite low powered for as long, like certainly as far as I've been playing it, compared to most of the enemies in this game can give you.
The health bar is a bit of a joke because you get like grappled once, you're done. But I mean that's where you get the resurrection mechanic that comes in as well.
And there's this whole thing where the wolf, the main character, is called Wolf, not Sekiro. And there's the whole thing where he what were we just talking about? My mind's
Resurrection.
Resurrection. Yeah. There's this whole like weird subplot going on in the background where. The world is decaying and everyone's got this
dragon rot.
Every time I die, I'm like, well,
it's that classic From Software thing. It's like, we'll give you a concession towards something, but we'll also make it still hard because you think, the ability for me to just resurrect and just keep going. They sort of still give you a caveat with that if you keep overusing that mechanic, you'll have NPCs that start dying of this dragon rot, and that you can then it'll apparently close off certain quest lines, or means you can't access certain like.
That just means I'm never going to.
Those guys are just collaterals.
They are so dead.
Yeah.
But that would be my sort of thing, was to like I'd go until I get like killed the first time, and then when it's the resurrection point, that's when I run away back to the not bonfire, the shrine, to regenerate my thing again, and then go back into it again. So I don't lose my XP by having a go at trying to progress, which I always thought in Dark Souls was the thing. Like, oh, I'm going to have a go. Oh, I've died. I've got to make my way back to there, to that enemy that I can't get past to pick up my souls.
So are you beyond the Hirata estate in your...
well, no, because I've been kind of picking and choosing between the two. So I started off, in the main bit, and then I went to Ashina, the Ashina province type thing.
Okay.
And then I went into Hirata State to do a few bits, and then I went back into... So I've been sort of mixing between the two.
I think I need to, like, I've just got very fixated on the Hirata estate. Unhealthily, I think. Probably.
Classic plans.
Because I would say the Ashina stuff is actually... I've defeated the first boss, and I actually found him to be kind of easy. In as much of like,
easy.
He telegraphs his attacks quite well, and so it's like, oh, I can quite manageably do this. It's just that I've gotten to a point just after that, a sub boss just after that, which I'm like, I don't know how to defeat you. What are you doing?
There's also this. Well, we should move on, shouldn't we? But there's also some kind of like ethereal bosses that you have to. They have like illusions around them. You can
got the divine confetti.
There's the snap seeds as well. And the divine. It gets very complicated.
And are you tempted?
No. First of all, Sekiro sounds like a failed calculator brand, doesn't it? I just can't get on with these games. Like, I played Bloodborne for a frustrating 5 hours, and then just realised it was basically me just kicking myself in the gentleman's area, so I gave up, and I'm not going back.
There's a great fact about the Bloodborne where something like ridiculous number of like maybe 50% of players never got past the first boss, like the cleric beast.
I believe it.
Yeah, I can totally believe that.
Well, you can't upgrade until you've beaten it.
Maybe
you've just got to see it. I can't remember.
Has anybody done a speedrun on it yet?
So it's been reported. We've not put a record together for it yet, but someone's beaten the game in less than 40 minutes.
Oh, wow!
I can actually
using a load
that.
of like not hacks, but like shortcuts and glitches and things like that.
40 minutes.
Yeah,
probably glitch because it's a big interconnected world. You could probably just sort of traverse something if you just find the right point to jump and everything like that.
So if you probably don't need to upgrade as much, it's probably a lot easier, isn't it? Like, if you're not like Bloodborne where you need to kind of... Although I've seen people do Bloodborne in like 30 minutes.
I mean, essentially, I think you could kill all of the bosses really easily if you had really good timing and knew their patterns, because I guess the mechanic stays the same all the way through to the end, that you can deflect pretty much any attack except the ones where it gives you the kind of on-screen symbol. Because actually, I mean, it's not really a spoiler, but right at the start of the game there is like this boss who comes in and just wipes the floor with you, but I don't know if you can kill him.
You must be able to.
I've seen a video of somebody killing him.
Does the game just
basically then I think a shuriken comes out of nowhere, you deflect it, and then the guy chops your arm off. So it's a bit of a cheap shot.
No way.
It's so dispiriting, isn't it, when you go through a really hard bit in those games, and then it's just some guy just legs it over, happy slaps you, and you're off.
In fairness, there would be no game without that thing happening to the character, because that's where he gets his...
It's a scripted failure. I'm not a big fan of scripted failures either, because it's just a case of like, well, why was I doing that? I mean, you could have think of a better way to get me into this situation, but I guess not.
It does feel like you kind of know it's coming, don't you, as well? It's too early to have this big moment with this boss who's going to be the end boss or whatever.
You see a health bar that big.
Yeah, you're like,
your one that's that big. You're like, nah.
I'll just wait here while he doffs me in the head.
Andy, on a completely different type of game, so what have you been playing?
Well, actually, it's extremely similar. Donut County. It's a very, very Souls-like game in no respect whatsoever. So basically,
anti-Souls.
It is literally. It probably is literally anti-Souls. It's a little game from an indie dev called Ben Esposito. I think he's from America, and he so it's got a kind of nice, quite Switch, quite common on Switch, quite cartoony, almost not quite cel shaded, but very stylized view, and it's fun. It's a fun game. You play effectively a hole in a weird way. But the thing is trash pandas, raccoons, as they're also known, are taking all the trash from the world, but they've gone overzealous, and but the idea is that you suck all the things in a kind of space into a hole, and the hole gets bigger. And gradually you can pull through whole buildings and vehicles and stuff like that.
So you are a raccoon? Or...
are you the hole?
You're the hole, basically. You control
like the reverse
the whole.
of beautiful Katamari. Is that how you say that?
Yeah. So it is the reverse, yeah. Basically, it's the trash pandas who are causing... It's a trash panda conspiracy, effectively. Not much for spoiler alert.
Should have called a game that.
Trash panda conspiracy. And it's really fun. You're like, you know, it's quite simple at first. You've got to kind of effectively work out the scale of things will go into. Some things are too big for the whole. I'm trying to say this with a straight face. But you've got to kind of work out where it goes through. And then there's kind of very light puzzles where you've got to kind of put things in a sequence of events. I kind of wanted more of the puzzles. I wanted a bit more kind of clever mechanics. It kind of hints at things and then suddenly it's all over. And it didn't quite feel like it really drove it home with like a kind of really clever system. Like if this was a Nintendo game, I think it would have been a lot more mechanics in there. But it's still really good. It's fun. It's kind of got a quirky story. It's got its tongue in its cheek, and it's a bit different. I think it's really fun. You look at me like, yeah.
I'm just amazed that you came to your own swift end. Usually we have to just interrupt you.
Jack, finished concisely.
I was trying to be concise.
Oh, that's good.
Jack, when you've not been Sekiroing,
yeah.
You've been playing Yoshi, right?
Oh yeah, this has been my palate cleanser to Sekiro. So basically, yeah, like Andy's Donut Council, this is the complete opposite of Sekiro. Nice, slow-paced, relaxing game filled with cute little dinosaurs. It's been a joy compared to Sekiro. I like both games, but Yoshi for me is a better game than Sekiro.
So Yoshi's Crafted World.
So yeah, so the twist on this one is Yoshi lives in a crafted world. So basically, it's almost Little Big Planet-esque. So the world is constructed of paper plates and garbage and stuff.
We're being lit by strobe lights.
This is exciting.
Our producer's on the case. It's okay. Carry on.
Yeah. So the world's basically made up of. It's like a diorama that a child has made at school. A very skilled, talented child. It looks amazing.
Hired by Nintendo.
Yep. And the plot, if you need a plot, is that a bad wizard has stolen some gems from the Yoshis, and you have to go and find them.
Naughty.
So you can choose which colour Yoshi you want to be, so that's quite exciting. It's
you can be Blushi.
You can be Blushi. John Blushi, you can be. And it's 2-player as well, so you can play with a friend if you want to. But basically, it's just utterly charming. There's not a thing about it which doesn't appeal to your eyes. It's amazing.
It 2 players as in 2 Yoshis, or...?
Yes, it's 2 Yoshis. Although in this game, Poochie makes a return. If anyone's
Poochie from Woolly World fame.
Yep, he's back.
Yoshi does invade weird worlds.
Yeah.
Like, where are these? In the Mushroom Kingdom.
Crafted.
In the Mushroom Kingdom lore, where is Crafted World and Woolly World? And
these are questions that aren't explained in the game.
Is Kirby's Epic Yarn the same as Woolly World?
I mean, it's kind of weird they came out at the same time. I do also wonder, Yoshi's Crafted World made with cardboard, is it subliminal advertising for Labo, do you think?
We're being invaded.
So, yeah.
I'm surprised they have not brought out a Labo-themed accessory to it, actually, because that would seem to fit the bill perfectly. It looks like cardboard, the game.
So in the game, like all the Yoshi games, you collect flowers and red coins, and you can trade them in at little gumball machines, which spit out costumes. So in each hub, there are these gumball machines, and you get these costumes, and there'll be things like a milk carton or a tissue box that Yoshi can wear.
Yep.
And then this is basically like armour. So if you get hit whilst you're wearing a tissue box, as we all know, you get less damage.
Yeah.
So I'm going wrong on Sekiro.
Exactly.
That's what they're wearing.
But so the worlds are quite diverse. There's lots of little different areas. So I played last night. I played the Sweet World, which is filled with fat shy guys, which is really disturbing.
No way. A beast
shy guy.
No
way. But the twist about Crafted World compared to Woolly World is it's on a 3D plane. So, you know, in the Yoshi games, you can throw eggs. So normally you hit a button and then a little indicator goes up and down. You have to select the right time to throw it. In this Yoshi game, you've got free aim, and you can aim towards the camera or into the background, or you can knock things over.
That's a game changer. I played the demo, and that is a game
changer. It is a game changer. So although the game is quite easy, for the most part, getting all the collectibles, I started the game thinking, right, I'm going to play every level and get every collectible I can along the way, and after a while I thought, I'm never going to finish this, because they're really well hidden, and you have to search the whole map basically to find the collectibles. So there is challenge there, but it's not around platforming, it's around getting 100% and finding all the collectibles.
You can't move the map, like the world yourself with the
you can
shoulder buttons
at certain places, so sometimes you'll hit a block and it'll turn the world around.
Okay.
Yeah.
And also, once you've completed the world, you can go back into that world and search for Pooch's pups.
Yep.
And that reverses.
What are they called?
The Poochettes, probably, aren't they?
Yeah.
And that turns the whole world around, so you're playing it from behind basically, and then you start from the end, working towards the start, and you have to go and find the Poochettes, as I've now called them. But yeah, so there's lots of replay value, and also there's a guy in each area who gives you a side quest. He says, "Oh, I quite like fish. Can you go find me a fish?" So you can go back into the level and find them. So there's lots of replay value. But the main thing is the graphics are utterly charming. The music, there's a little whistle involved.
Yeah, it's quite irritating after a while, isn't it? It's like bing, 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 and you're like, after a while, like, oh god, that's really kind
Especially
of
a game that encourages you to go back into that level and find
the
Poochettes.
You can turn it down, though, can't you?
Yeah, it's not the best Yoshi-based music I've ever heard, but it's fine. It does the job.
It's in my top 5. Though.
Yeah, top 5 Yoshi tracks. But no, it's just utterly charming. I'd say it's probably one of the best looking games on the Switch. Certainly one of the most charming. And I've played, obviously, Captain Toad Treasure Tracker, which is up there. So
I love the way you can actually see like the sides of the cardboard, like you know, the perforations and stuff like that.
Everything looks like it has been made.
It's
in
really
the classroom.
clever. Yeah, it's like really clever. And when it flips and you're behind the back, all the cardboard's like crinkled. You know, the bit where you weren't expecting you to see and stuff like that. It's got a real kind of. They've really nailed the look, haven't they? You know, it could look a bit twee, but actually, it's really, really cute.
Is it challenging or
no? It's challenging in so much as finding all the objects in an area, but in terms of actually the platforming, it's pretty much a straight walk for the most part. I mean, you know, you're knocking things down to create platforms. There are some bits where you're jumping in the air and there's no platform beneath you, which could be a bit tricky, but it's not hard. It's really not hard.
Luke, have you been up to much?
Other than that, I have picked up on the Switch the greatest Final Fantasy game.
Final Fantasy 6.
Final Fantasy 7.
And you're incorrect in that case.
There's not really much I can say about it. It's, you know, this is I think the game that introduced me to the JRPG. I remember the first time I rented it, which was a mistake. When you see, oh, it's 3 discs. How am I going to get through this in a day and a half?
I wonder what the speed with that. We must have it on the system somewhere.
Well, this new edition has 3 features. So you can either speed everything up by ×3, so which is quite cool for just like those bits when you're like, I know I don't need to go. You can also turn off random encounters, which again, if you're just sort of looking around and exploring, then could help you for that. And there's also a like battle enhanced mode, which I think just sort of gives you max stats in any battle you want. So I think this is kind of a port of like, right, do what you want with it. If you just want to experience the story, or if you want to actually have the full challenge, it's all there.
How old is the game now? I got a feeling I was at college.
97 it came out.
I thought 97, yeah.
God, so it's very, very old.
It's an old one. I mean, all the sort of the pre-rendered backgrounds still look lovely, in contrast to the actual character models, which are just ridiculous.
Massive block hands.
Well, no, now because this is sort of high resolution, I think it's based on the PC version. It's like these just flat, like blocky textures look really nice, look really crisp.
We were saying it's back in the day, it was a massive thing that Final Fantasy jumped from a Super Nintendo or Nintendo console to a Sony console.
You can still find the original forums online where people were complaining when the news came out back in '96 that this was going to be on a PlayStation console, because people thought it was going to be on the Ultra 64, was.
I think it started development for that as well.
Really?
If you actually read into it,
there's a lot of '90s beef on the internet about this going to the
nothing worse than '90s beef.
Nothing worse.
That's a rank old
90s beef.
But people were a lot kinder back then. People are upset, but politely.
But not that bothered.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I'm thoroughly disappointed in you.
Not just instant death threats.
Cool. So you would still recommend Final Fantasy VII?
Yeah, no, I mean, I really like it. It's a really engaging story, I think. And yeah, like it.
In other news that didn't make the news that I've written down, but apparently Square Enix is gearing up for its what it calls like the biggest year ever in its financial reports, which has made many people think that finally the Final Fantasy VII remake is on the verge of coming out. So who knows? Who knows? Cool. So should we move on to our next section, which is going to be catching up on 2 weeks of news?
Yeah.
So what was it? Monday last week, Sony apes Nintendo's Direct, shall we say, to come up with its PlayStation State of Play, and it whipped through a number of games. The overall thing was a little underwhelming for the first kind of this video. You know, that you would have thought that they would have had something to really hang it around as like the thing that made you very excited for watching that and wanting to watch the next show.
Yeah.
I don't think it particularly materialised, but anyway, let's run through. So the first thing they started with, this isn't everything, by the way, it's just my curated what I was interested in. Iron Man VR, which I thought on the thing looked pretty rubbish, but apparently it's been previewing really well.
Yeah, it's been getting some good write-ups, hasn't it? Really, I mean, it's hard to show VR in a good way.
It is, yeah, it really is.
You know, it's kind of like half the experience, isn't it? Really, but in theory, that could be really fun, couldn't it? You get the mask comes down, you flying through the air.
Well, if it makes it look like it does in the films, which obviously that's what they're going for. Yeah. I think that the thing that threw me a bit when the trailer was shown was it's not. I don't think anyway. It's not Robert Downey Jr.'s voice, is it? So it kind of immediately. I was just like, that doesn't sound right, because you should easily be able to tell that that's Tony Stark from the voice, but I don't think it was the voice, unless I was just not really paying attention.
Is this like an on the rails shooter type thing then, or?
Yeah, that's what it looks like.
Okay.
I don't know. But like I say, it's been surprisingly well received.
That Batman VR game, people really enjoyed that, didn't they? And on paper, that looks a bit rubbish. But I think getting to be the Batman, it's quite
the Batman.
The Batman. Why's everyone laughing?
The Batman.
Anyway,
that person.
People enjoyed that. Sometimes with VR, it's enough just to have an experience. You don't need to have a decent game behind it. To just be the Iron Man could be quite cool.
The next thing they did, this is one for you, Jack, probably. No Man's Sky Beyond.
Wow.
Finally, it could be time for you to jump back into No Man's Sky.
I've jumped so far out of it, I can't even see it anymore.
Were you there for the next? Was it the next update?
I jumped out. I jumped out way before
Did you sell your copy of it?
I jumped in on release date. I got a day and date.
Wow.
So did I actually. So yeah.
And then the weekend afterwards, I jumped out pretty quickly, like an ejector seat.
You were probably 50% of their sales on day.
Well, no, that was the thing. It sold like hotcakes, and then everyone vented. Talking of venting your rage online, that's what happened.
But it also reviewed very well because
it did.
And then everyone sort of.
Because it was such a vast game, I suppose. Like, what's a reviewer supposed to do in like a couple of days when you've got the review copy?
It's a fine game originally, but it's just very repetitive, and you could see through the cracks quite clearly once you play more than a few hours into it. But yeah, to be fair to them, they've done a lot of work on it since, and VR seems like the logical next step.
Yeah, it does look. It looks great in. Not that I've played it in VR, but I've watched videos of the VR perspective, and it looks really cool. And kind of the way at the time, it felt like this should have been a VR game anyway, because the graphics didn't look like amazing. They look like they would work. You know, they're good, but they don't look like they would work in a VR environment. And at the time, it was when VR, like PSVR, was being really pushed and launched, and it felt like it was inevitably going to be announced that No Man's Sky was a VR game. But that announcement never came, and now I suppose finally, maybe it was supposed to, and it never did. But yeah, finally it looks like it's where it should have been from the start. Ready Set Heroes. So this was a multiplayer kind of team-based dungeon crawler, which looked like it might be quite fun. And then they continued the VR stuff with this Blood and Truth game, which you're looking forward to, aren't you? So 28th of May it comes out. I've described it as a VR cockney 'em up.
Yep.
It basically looks like everyone's Vinnie Jones in this game.
So this is a kind of full proper game based on the demo in VR Worlds. What was that called? That one, the Heist. Yeah. Which is that's probably the best game in VR Worlds, I would say. And it really felt like you were a proper Cockney geezer shooting up the place with your shooter. The Cockney geezer. He's got a shooter.
Is it kind of like The Getaway? Remember those games?
Yeah, basically.
Oh, okay, right.
It was the same people, wasn't it? Was it not?
Well, that was a Sony studio, wasn't it? So it could be. I don't know.
But I think what they've shown of this, it looks really good. It looks like there's lots going on. It looks like there's lots of different areas to explore and things to do. It's not just a case of shooting guys continuously.
It's the traversal, I guess, isn't it? Because in VR games they tend to make you teleport around, like in the Batman game, The Batman game. And yeah, so I wonder how they'll get over the fact that you've got to walk around these environments, or will it just be you're in a car and then you're in a plane and then you're in a helicopter? You know, so you're just firing.
I'm happy not walking most of the time, and so
just in life.
Yeah. So I would say it does take you out of it a bit when you've got to walk around, because it's a lot easier if they just put you in one place and move you around themselves. So if you are just, like you say, in a car, in a plane, sat in an office chair.
You could be in a wheelchair.
Yeah, being wheeled around.
That's, be a wheelchair.
They could do the Professor X experience.
Yeah, exactly.
They
could do that.
Yeah. Like Perry Mason.
The next thing they, well, maybe not the next thing. The next thing I wrote down was this game called Observation by No Code. So it's like a weird, well, it looks really cool. It's a sci-fi horror game set on a spaceship where it says like you are, well, not a spaceship, a space station. And it says you are the space station. No, it's not out, I don't think.
Is it not?
No.
I've seen reviews for it. I'm sure I've seen reviews.
That's The Observer, I think you're thinking of. It's similar but different. Entirely different, in fact. And yeah, it looks a bit like, HAL 9000, whatever type of thing, where you're being like observed, or you're observing the character. It's a bit like Tahoma, actually. Did you guys play that?
Yeah.
So it looks a little bit like that kind of story-based narrative. The same studio made this game called Stories Untold, which I was doing a bit of like working out who these guys were, and I've never played the game, and it looks amazing. It's like an 80s based.
We played it.
You've played it?
We reviewed it. Yeah, it's like you go to a computer terminal, and it's all based around a computer terminal, and the story kind of happens around you.
Yeah.
It's really atmospheric, and it's quite creepy, isn't it? So basically you're going back to your house and learning about your house. It's really good.
Yeah,
it's got like a kind of Stranger Things vibe, hasn't it?
Definitely check it out, Mike, because it is really cool.
What's that TV program? Outer Limits. Like Outer Limits.
Yeah, or Twilight Zone.
Twilight Zone, yeah. Because we could list things.
It's got quite a
X Factor, X-Files.
EastEnders, a bit like that.
It's got quite a dark twist at the end, which is worth hanging around for. It's not a long game either. It's about 3 or 4 hours, I think. But
I think it's great.
Yeah, it's
really
awesome.
It.
Yeah.
So you're more excited for Observation now than you were before.
Yeah, I'm going to play Stories Untold again.
Next, they showed Five Nights at Freddy's, which is a game that has passed me by entirely. I don't know if you guys played it.
I have. It did scare me a lot. It's
well, now you can play.
This is the VR version.
Yeah, no, I don't know if I'm going to be able to stomach that. I mean, it's more just like spoofing the AI. Eventually, I think I've seen people speed running it by this, simply just going, just click, just constantly just trying to manage where the sort of puppet.
What is the? I know, like, I understand these devil teddy bears coming to get you, but how do you stop them? Like, I don't understand how it works.
So basically you have, I mean, I've only played the first one. I know there's like 8 million of them now. But in the first one, you've got a certain amount of power, so you've got 100% power, and the door to the room that you're in, the observation room, apparently it takes power to shut the doors, so you have to keep the doors shut on them. So basically you're looking at the camera, so like, right, where are they? Are they coming down the corridor? And as soon as you spy one coming down the corridor, that's when you've got to close the door. Hold it there. But you can't hold it there for too long because it'll drain too much power, and if you run out of power, that's when you get got.
Okay.
So it's kind of about managing all these different things and looking at the cameras, and I think some of the newer games then add different little mechanics, like you have to sort of keep an alarm going in one of the rooms, but again that draws power, and also looking at other routes in for all of them and stuff. Yeah, it's a scary, I guess, just sort of management game.
Scare management.
management.
And then they finished with a few Sony in-house exclusives. So there was Concrete Genie, which is the one where you can graffiti a big monster on the wall and it sort of follows you around, which looked good. They confirmed it for autumn 2019, which makes you think, is that the game they're going to try to sell at Christmas this year, which is, I can't see it being the biggest seller, but they showed Days Gone, which is out in a few weeks' time now. I think around the 20th of April sort of time.
I'm really not sure about that game.
Yeah,
I've seen a lot of footage for it, which makes me slightly nervous. Like, like proper hour playthroughs of just of loads of stuff. There's not much there, and it looks really generic, doesn't it? it looks really kind of, even the horde mechanic looks pretty, you know.
It's a funny game because it's been shown for what 2, 3, 4 years now, and it's never really got to the point where anyone seems to be that excited for it, no matter how many times they show it.
And like, you know, it's that classic thing of like putting down a trap, or oh look, I've found a paint tin and turned it into a silencer, or I've got to go over to my bike, and then I'm going to get a mission off here to go and get some stuff to come back, and I don't know.
Do you think it just looks like a disappointing copy of Horizon Zero Dawn?
Yeah,
or even Far Cry, perhaps. Like, maybe Far Cry is more like it. Yeah,
I mean, it just looks very general, doesn't it? Like just very kind of like.
Having said that, I'll still be interested to have a go of it and see what it's like in the end.
Yeah,
but,
I can see exactly how it's going to play. It's going to be a solid 8, I think.
Predicting it, right?
Well, this is the problem with game reviews, isn't it?
Yeah.
Anything
below
a 7, it's like
like
it's trash.
And and then I think this is how they finished it with Mortal Kombat 11, which looked kind of cool for a Mortal Kombat game. So they showed the gimmick in this one is that it's kind of the past and the present coming together. So you've got like Sub-Zero in his old outfit fighting Sub-Zero from his bionic outfit that he has these days, and they did that with all of the characters like Liu Kang and Raiden. And
so there've been some videos already of going through all the different fatalities. It was like a 10-minute video. I got about 2 minutes through it. I was like, no, this is just too much.
Yeah.
I'm not really down for that side of it anymore. Like when I was a kid, it seemed like the most fun thing ever. But then at the same time, the graphics have got like a lot more realistic now, so it's got a much more like sort of grim side to it, I suppose, than it had on the Super Nintendo.
Although
that's a bad example.
It would be quite fun. It would be quite fun to be in those meetings when they were planning them out. It's like, right, what are we gonna do for like Raiden? It's gonna chop somebody in half and then.
Well, Raiden's always quite. Well, he probably isn't anymore, but he used to be the boring one who just electrocuted them to death.
Yeah, true.
Whereas Sub-Zero was like the rip the head off and.
It'd be good if one of them did like
I always like Liu Kang turned into a dragon, and then he just flame grilled them. Sorry.
I'd love it if someone did like a psychological over a 20-year period, you know, just poisoning them a little bit more, breaking their spirit, and it just ends 20 years later with them committing suicide. You know,
wow,
that got dark.
But then, you know, that's different, isn't it? You know, it's more psychological. I don't know how you're going to condense that into like 30 seconds, but
speed it up.
Time lapse, maybe.
So just come over, whisper something in their ear, and then just fast forward to them in a rocking chair.
Just seething some doubt.
Later,
and, like, oh. And it gets grayer and grayer and grayer, like an autumn leaf.
We'll be like that bit in Last Crusade, where you know the guy ages really quickly.
Yes.
Spoilers for the Last Crusade.
Does this have friendships in it? And all that
I think it does have. Yeah, I think it does.
Oh, babalities. Yeah,
that's good.
Cool. So that was, overall impressions of the state of play. I don't know. It was
I think
a little underwhelming.
it feels like a work in progress, doesn't it? They haven't really nailed it. I mean, neither's Nintendo, to be fair, but I don't think they've really quite got the gist of this, really. I mean, it's like AAA titles, then a mix of this. I think they need to focus on the indies, or they need to just think on quick games that are available now. It's just a bit of a mishmash. Yeah,
they definitely didn't need to have Concrete Genie Days Gone, or even probably Mortal Kombat 11. They could have definitely just featured the indie games and then put a couple of surprises in there in the mix. But it seemed to be lacking a true big surprise that everyone would go, Sony just showed this.
Even some more Last of Us 2 footage would be quite cool.
Yeah, but I think they'll be saving that for the June kind of time.
I don't think this is their quick and quick fast pace. This is what's coming type thing. It's not their showcases.
Yeah, but how often are these going to be?
I think they said there'd be definitely one in June. I'm not sure when they said. I think that might be the next one around E3
that's
time.
ages away.
Yeah.
Is that E3 time? I thought they're not going to be there, but they're going to do something on that.
Yeah, they'll put one of these things out, and it'll say, "Oh, Last of Us 2 is still being made." No date.
The one thing I would say was it was quite VR heavy, and if you don't own a VR headset, there probably wasn't that much for you actually.
Although it's great to see that they are still pushing VR on the other side of that coin. So
it'd be nice if they did these things, and then they timed it with PS Plus, and I said, right, one of these games is available now on PS Plus, and you can play it straight away, and it's like, then it'd be like, okay, well, I'm glad I'm a PS Plus member, rather than a kind of random selection of stuff.
Yeah, because that would actually solve one of the issues with PlayStation Plus, is that it's just a little bit random. Sometimes they cobble together two things, like, what is it at the moment, Conan and The Surge? Yep. And no disrespect to those to those games, but nobody is going, thank God. Especially when, it's The Surge and Sekiro, relatively similar, like that sort of survival game. And, everyone's only wants to play the new thing. No one's really interested in the.
I can't remember the last time they debuted a game on PS Plus, because Rocket League was debuted on PS Plus.
Yeah, it was.
That's a massive game. There's not been anything since that really. They need a big name, or just a really cool indie title that's on PS Plus first.
I think Andy's nailed it. They need to get one of these state of plays, and then the first game you see, which hopefully is a good one, maybe not a VR game because not everyone can play it, and they go, it's free.
Last of Us 2.
Yeah.
It's not
Get in touch, Sony.
That's not going to happen.
I am available.
And then, not to be outdone by either PlayStation or Google Stadia that we covered last time, Apple announced Apple Arcade. So this is a little bit different than Stadia. Stadia. So it's a subscription service, no price confirmed yet, but the games are downloaded. You're not streaming them; they're downloaded to your device.
You can do both. You can do both. You can stream them and you can do offline play. I think is.
No, you download them so you can do offline. I don't think you can stream them from what I was reading.
You can stream them, can't you?
Oh well, let's agree to disagree.
And I watched the show, so.
But
you wouldn't stream a phone game, though, would you?
Well, no, but I think you know some of them will be persistent play ones, won't they? So they'll be like.
But they're local on your phone, though.
Yeah, they're downloaded to your phone.
I think that's the cross. Yeah,
you get access to all the updates and any DLC that comes out, which isn't the case with Xbox Live Arcade, where you've got to buy the DLC and stuff as if you were buying it if you bought the disc. And a few studios are signed up already, including Sega, Konami, which could be cool because you might get some new Contras and stuff.
Yeah.
And Disney and a few
Aiming
others.
high.
Yeah.
I love a bit of Contra.
Yeah, but do you want it on an iPhone?
No, that's it. Well, interesting. What they didn't show was, unless I totally missed it, was a control pad.
No. So it's basically been used with existing everything you can use with existing iPhone games.
So is there an Apple control pad?
No, I don't think there's a first party one, but I think that you can buy third party ones, can't you? And also
I want that though. I want the
you
one
can use
that
it through
make,
Apple TV. You can use controls through Apple TV, can't you? They very specifically said with this that this is not about freemium games. It's not about ad-supported games. It's not about microtransactions. It's about this middle ground of middle-sized developers to a small indies who are making games just that you buy the game and that's that. And there's no you don't get any data, you don't get anything about the people, you don't get like you can't flog them microtransactions and skins and stuff. You just buy a game and you play a game.
So it is in that way trying to bring Apple up to the level of having games that you just pick up in a not a traditional physical like brick and mortar store, but it's like the idea that I suppose what they're getting at is the games on the Apple Store in many instances are a little bit rubbish because they're based around just microtransactions and draining your wallet basically. Whereas this is a step into
it's not Candy
making
Crush,
what we call proper games.
Yeah. And I suppose for them, what their pitch is to these guys is we've got hundreds and hundreds of millions of users on iOS, and we will promote your game because there'll only be like around 100 in there. So if you're coming to that store and you're an Apple Arcade user, you're probably going to play most of the games, aren't you? So you're more likely to get there. What I don't understand is how much you pay for a start, and like whether is it just all you can eat? I think pretty much, but how they will then sort that out, and how they're going to refresh it with games. So like, how often are there going to be new stuff on there? How are you going to know about that?
And will things fall out of it because they put new stuff in it?
Potentially, yeah.
So I mean, obviously they didn't announce price, but I mean, you've got so many subscriptions these days coming out of your account. What with Netflix and Amazon Prime and all the different, all these different things. And then you've got like your Xbox Live or your PS Plus or your Nintendo Online. So, Stadia. So, like, where do you eventually draw the line? I mean, how much would this have to be to pull you in?
I reckon $10 for this, because that's how much their news service is.
News service is $10, yeah. So it's around about £8, which it's quite a lot. If there's not, I mean,
it's not a lot, but it's a lot when you consider all the things that are coming out of your wallet every month.
Yeah, and also like you might not want to play all those games. I mean, like I looked at the list, a fairly sizable list, but I mean, there was like some stuff in there that might be quite interesting, and obviously some of them are new, so I'm not aware of them. But that's a big commitment to games which could be alright, might not be alright. I mean, like you can get really good games on the Switch for like £3 or £4, and you just buy them, play them, and forget about it. So it's like, I don't know. Is it the right model? And maybe kind of having a proper game store, a better game store with a more focused might have been a better idea, but
it's the idea of getting away from owning games, isn't it, as well? Like, I like the fact that even if I don't really like the Switch game I bought, at least it's there. Like, it's not disappearing anytime soon. Whereas with this, you know, say my favorite, like I've made some notes on 4 of the games which I found a bit interesting that were unveiled. But say, like we'll get to in a second, that Beyond the Steel Sky. What happens if that falls out of the games that they are offering for free? Does that mean I just suddenly can't play that as part of the subscription? That's where the grey area is around.
You would have thought so, yeah.
Have they also said, if I'm not subscribed to the service and I want to play that game, can I just buy that?
You must be able to, mustn't you? I can't see how they could, because so to go through, like I say, I picked out 4 of the games that caught my eye. I think they announced quite a few, didn't they? Maybe about 30.
Oh yeah, well, there's going to be 100 plus.
Yeah, but they didn't put 100 names out of games. That's for sure.
No. Well, they didn't really pull out any game. The things that they pulled out were. I'm trying to think what they pulled out now.
Well, I've got some.
Oh, yeah.
I've written some down, Andy.
As if by
so Beyond the Steel Sky, which for nerds like me and Jack is a sequel to Beneath a Steel Sky, which was kind of like a Monkey Island pretender in a way by what was the name of the studio? I can't remember anymore. I should have written that down.
Yep.
But the developer it was developed by a fellow called Charles Cecil, and then Dave Gibbons, who I believe is the artist on Watchmen, right? He was the artist on board, and these guys have come together again to make Beyond the Steel Sky, which takes the very pixel arty Scum Engine type game of what do you think it came out in 1990 or something like that?
Yeah, it would have been around that. It was like a sci-fi point and click.
Yeah, so it's basically Blade Runner without being Blade Runner.
This is one of those games I didn't know I wanted a
Revolution
sequel.
Revolution Software.
This is one of those games I didn't know I wanted a sequel to until they announced it. Because I've not thought about this game for probably a couple of decades.
I've only ever thought about it because every now and then I have a look back at all of the old like Monkey, and this isn't a LucasArts game, but it always comes up when you look at those classic point and click adventures. It's always one of the ones that comes up. I played a bit of it, never finished it, but it's still in my head has this like place on the shelf where it's like a sort of game that everyone used to talk, wax lyrical about. So Beyond the Steel Sky takes it into the modern direction. Everything's now kind of semi-cell shaded. It was hard to kind of tell by the.
Yeah, it was kind of hard. It was virtually a sizzle reel, wasn't it? Really,
yeah.
It was really hard. Well, it was a sizzle reel. It wasn't like kind of they broke down individual games. And they had a few developers come on and say, "Apple's brilliant. Thanks very much for the cash."
One of the other games. Well, just to run through these ones that I picked out, but Fantasia. Which surely Disney's going to get involved in that at some point. But so this is a game by Hironobu Sakaguchi, who created Final Fantasy way back in the day. Yeah. So it's an RPG, kind of shiny and nice looking. Repair by Us Two Games, who were the studio behind Monument Valley, as popularised on House of Cards back in the day. And Overland, which is this post-apocalyptic road trip game.
I think
Overland looks really interesting.
Yeah, that's the one I'm most interested in, but that is coming to the Switch.
It is, yeah. So that's the other thing. So what is the point of having this Apple subscription if you can just pick the same game up in a Switch sale in a couple of years' time? And
it makes it feel like they're a bit like Google. They're making the pitch here. So we've got all these users. We're going to really push this. We're a massive brand. Blah 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 blah. Come over with your games, and hoping that people will go, all right, I'm going to do this, but. How are they going to mark things which are exclusive? Are they going to make a big deal out of it? It's like, how am I going to feel if I'm paying my £8 that I'm getting like good value for it? If I'm kind of like, well, I've played most of the things on here I want to play. What's next?
And has an app got that cachet to it to make it an exclusive that you're really going to be that? Because there's loads of app exclusives that come out all the time and no one pays them any heed. They're just on the Apple Store and maybe the Android Store and nowhere else. And they come and disappear and no one ever knows about any of them.
But also, I'm not going to go and flog my iPhone and go and get a Pixel or something just because I want to play a game on it. I'm into a contract. I'm not going to change. So it's kind of like, it feels like Apple is on this subscription marathon at the moment, like position push rather, because obviously device sales are slowing. But that's a lot of subscriptions. You've got news, you've got TV Plus. You've got the music, and you've got the.
They've not announced a bundle of all this stuff.
Yeah, where's the bundle? It's like you expect me to pay for each one of them, probably like average £7 each. That's a lot of money every month, isn't it? Like, you think I've already paid you like 800 quid for the device, and now you're rinsing me for like 25 quid a month. You know,
well, and you've got your contract anyway to pay.
You got your contract as well. It's like, I don't know, how much money do they need?
All the money is the answer to that. And then getting to more recent news, Sega finally kind of re-revealed, because it was in last year's book, this the Sega Megadrive Mini, because they announced it in Japan at Tokyo Games Week or something like that ages ago. But suddenly the Mini Megadrive, or Genesis if you're in the States, has been kind of like re-unveiled. Due September this year. They're saying it's going to have 40 games on it. They've said 10 games are confirmed so far, which is just the obvious, well, not the obvious 10, but just like the 10 you know would definitely be out on the game, on the machine, out of 40 games. But anyway, there's original Sonic the Hedgehog, Echo the Dolphin, Gunstar Heroes, Toe Jam and Earl, Altered Beast, Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine, Comic Zone, which is quite the cool kind of fighting game through comic panels, which I always quite liked, Space Harrier 2, Castlevania, The New Generation, and Shining Force, which is the RPG. Which leads me to ask you guys, is there any games that this system wouldn't be complete without?
Well, there's been quite a few of these sort of Mega Drive Minis, third-party ones, haven't there? And they always seem to miss out. They get Sonic 1, you get Sonic 2, you get Sonic Spinball, you get Sonic and Knuckles.
But not the Sonic 3.
Sonic 3 is always omitted. I don't know why. I like that one.
Isn't it? Well,
has it got music?
I think there's music. Yeah.
I want Earthworm Jim as well.
I'm pretty sure. Didn't Michael Jackson do some of the music for Sonic 3?
I think that was Sonic 2.
Was it?
I think that was Sonic 2.
Maybe they've
say Aladdin on there as well. Yeah, it should have Aladdin.
Maybe they've taped over it like the BBC does. Well, Doctor Who
Aladdin's
episodes.
like a difficult one to put on there, because it's probably licensing with Disney's changed
topical
a heck of a lot.
They're doing a movie, aren't they?
2019 is the year to bring Aladdin out.
Yeah.
Because what was there
in...
Also, those Disney games, like, they're always really highly respected, but when you try to play them now, they're really unforgiving, really difficult.
And here lies the rub with this console, isn't it? It's like we were all like really excited about the SNES Mini. I was like, oh, I'm gonna play all these games. Plugged it in a few times and then went, oh, I can't be bothered. Actually, I've got modern games to play, like hundreds of them that are
better things
up.
to do with my time.
Like,
you mean you don't watch Tim Burton's Batman over Batman Begins?
But I don't go back. I mean,
the Batman, sorry.
The Batman, yeah.
Have some respect.
The Burton. You know, I just like, I don't know. Like, and it's quite disappointing, isn't it? I really love the Strike games, Desert Strike, Urban Strike, and I watched a video. Cause I think we were talking about it or something, weren't we? Now I watched a video online. I was like, wow, it looks crap.
We were just amazed by how many Strike games there were in there. There was Urban, like Jungle, Nuclear,
Brexit Strike. Preempt that one.
The Batman Strike.
I did the cutscenes in the Strike games were hilarious. It was like Michael Bay film, or like a guy had, I'm a dictator. I've got the big aviators on and the big hats, and I'm talking about I'm going to dominate the world. And in that kind of like, you know, the really rubbish cutscenes they used to have. But they were really good fun, but I don't need to go back there. Like, you know, I don't need to go back to me at that time in my life. Thanks very much.
I was never particularly a Mega Drive kid. I always had I was Nintendo all the way. So like, I don't actually have any like beloved Mega Drive.
Well,
games.
I do. You know, I love the Mega Drive. It was like, you know, it was my console at that age. But I don't need to go back. Like, I just don't. I know if I get
forward.
this, I'll be really excited. I've just dropped my wallet. I'll be really excited, and then I'll play it a few times and just forget about it. You know, and I know the console's going to look really cute, and it's going to be really like nice system, and it's going to be a bit retro and stuff like that, and you know, but I don't know.
One thing I wish with these things is that you could add games to them, because I mean, there's a nice sort of thing to be said about like archiving like all of the sort of games that were on that particular system, but this is just such a small slice of them.
Yeah.
You sometimes wish that your favourite could be put on there. Just so like, oh, it's got the HD, you know, I can plug it into the HDMI. I don't need to fiddle around with SCART cables and stuff.
Yeah, definitely.
But no, because they're so locked off, it feels like, oh, well, I guess that's all I'm going to get from that past generation.
Yeah, definitely. And I know that I'm going to play. I'm really excited to play Echo the Dolphin, and then go, I didn't play very well. And I think it's going to be really hard and clunky and complicated. And
see, so we all got the SNES Mini when it came out, didn't we? And I think some of those games have aged really well, like Zelda especially, Super Mario World, Yoshi's Island, all still play just as well as they did back in the day.
I think that Super Nintendo goes on a Nintendo crazy person, but I think that Super Nintendo games aged slightly better than the Mega Drive games did too. Somehow in most instances,
it was a better system, wasn't it?
Anyway, moving swiftly on. We are actually running low on time, so just to finish the news before we move on to On the Record. But apparently there's a new Zelda on the way. So Monolith Games posted a job ad. So Monolith lent its talents to they make Xenoblade Chronicles, of course, and they lent their development team to Nintendo as part of Breath of the Wild development. And they have basically advertised for lots more positions to make a new Zelda game. So this has made many people think that there's probably Breath of the Wild 2 or a Majora's Mask type take on Breath of the Wild coming out. So that'd be really cool. Anyway, we'll leave that until we've got more concrete details. So, Luke, rattling on through On the Record. Sorry, I didn't realise we've been going for so long.
Yeah, lots of news, but we've been catching up, haven't we? So, going to start off with the oldest video games YouTuber.
So this is just to interrupt you, but she it's just been confirmed that Shirley Curry is going to be in Skyrim 6. This is what prompted this. So go on. Anyway, get on with it.
Nice to have a bit of context. So the oldest video game
Skyrim
YouTuber.
6, yeah.
Oh, she's going to be in what? In
when it comes out,
Elder Scrolls 6
as an NPC, like.
Right. Okay. Carry on.
Not bits of her.
Yeah, no. Just been chopped her up
in the disc.
Go and find her body parts.
There's a bit in every box.
Well, I mean, Shirley Skyrim Grandma Curry was born on the 2nd of April, 1936. So she's aged 83 today.
Happy birthday, perfect.
And so she shot hundreds of videos for her self-titled channel, building up a massive fan base of 512,057 subscribers and accumulating over 10 million views. Wow. She was originally introduced to gaming by her son in the 90s. I was going to ask you guys do you have any sort of older relatives who like to play games? Or
Nope,
not really. When I was a kid, I used to make my dad play Mario Kart, but he was garbage.
Yeah, my dad plays Minesweeper.
That's actually my mum plays not Tetris, but Tetris-like games on the DS. Weirdly, puzzle games.
Why don't you get a proper Tetris game?
Tetris 99.
Play Tetris knockoffs.
She likes what she likes. I think she plays Bejeweled or something.
Because I was going to say I used to play point-and-click adventure games with my dad. We went through the Discworld 1 and 2. Do you remember those?
Oh, they were really hard as well.
They were really hard. Just basically rubbing every single item against everything in the environment to find out, this random collection of two things will work together. Moving on to the best-selling Sega console, video game console, is the Sega Genesis, aka the Mega Drive, which according to the VGCharts.com has sold 29,540,000 units. That was verified on the 2nd of April, 2019. So according to VGCharts.com, the Genesis, or Mega Drive, currently sits at position 17 in the best-selling video game platform leaderboard.
It's weird, isn't it? You'd think it would be higher.
Yeah, I think behind the Super Nintendo sounds about right to me.
Well, it's one above the Atari 2600 and one below the Nintendo DS.
Well, that shows that the gaming market's grown, hasn't it? Because at that stage, it probably would have been as big as the PS2, but actually the gaming market's just expanded, hasn't it, rapidly?
I guess every home PlayStation console from PS1 to 4 has probably outsold it, which is pretty
There was a thing on the wires today about the UK games industry worth like over $5.5 billion or something.
Yeah, so a similar report went out for the US games industry. So basically the games industry on the whole is just on a massive growth at the moment.
Yeah, it's worth an absolute fortune.
And when you think that the PS5 and stuff is going to be coming out in like a year and a half time, it's pretty nuts that it's going to explode again. So logic would dictate anyway.
Yeah.
Well, The Last of Us 2 is coming out on something, and it ain't the PS4. So.
Yeah. So the last one I've got is because I would say, speaking of the Sega Genesis Mini, Streets of Rage was my all-time favourite BG game.
Not confirmed, but guaranteed. You can guarantee.
And the music is one of the main reasons why. The composer Yuzo Koshiro, Yuzo Koshiro.
Okay.
Apologies if I butchered that name. From Japan, happens to be the most prolific beat-em-up video game soundtrack composer, and has written 90 scores across a variety of genres. The other notable games in his catalogue are The Revenge of Shinobi, Batman Returns, and Dragon Ball Online.
The
Batman Returns.
Funnily enough, Revenge of Shinobi also has the Batman in it.
There you go.
Oh yeah.
It's a common thread.
Although he then got taken out because of licensing issues.
And I was going to ask what scores your favourite scores you have.
Score draws.
Score draws.
In the polls.
Obviously, the Mario soundtracks, it's so much better than the Megadrive ones.
No, Sonic 2 is the best of all time. So.
I don't know.
Streets of Rage.
There was the Sensible World of Soccer. Do you remember the intro? There's also Cannon Fodder.
I was going to say Cannon Fodder.
Yeah, that was the best.
Do the GTA radio soundtracks count? It doesn't really, does it?
No.
It doesn't really.
Tony Hawk's.
Buck Bumble for the N64.
Wow.
That song at the beginning. Bump to the bass, at the bump to the bass.
I don't even know what that was.
Sadly, I do know what it is.
Don't bump to the bass to the bum.
Don't, because people are going to go away and check out YouTube, and then it'll be stuck in their brain forever.
If they try,
your fault.
That song is amazing.
It's not amazing.
That bit
terrible.
in Red Dead Redemption where you transition between the bit and go down to New Mexico, and there's like a beautiful sequence. I think it's a Jose Gonzalez track, and it's just like that is haunting. Like it was really beautiful at the time. Like, but the soundtrack in itself was a bit.
Well, with open world games, it's really tricky, isn't it? Because you've got to have a soundtrack which you can't get really annoying. So it's got to have like be going constantly, but rising and falling to the right moments.
Picking it out.
I'd say the Breath of the Wild one is awesome.
Yeah, it's got that little subtle. Is it certain locations where you get the subtle classic track that suddenly? Oh, is it when you're on the horse, isn't it? I think it's when you're riding a horse.
Riding through, when you're riding fast through somewhere.
Yeah,
I think, so.
And it just is like little bits of it in the background. But actually, in Breath of the Wild, they do a really good job of not really like hammering home the fact that it's a Zelda game very often with the callbacks to old things. But anyway, it's a whole different tangent. Cool, I think we're done.
Yeah.
Okay, so this has been Guinness World Records Gamers Podcast. As I said at the top of the show, if you enjoyed the show, you can catch up with all our previous shows just by Googling GWR Gamers Podcast. And having a look for our YouTube channel and our iTunes and Spotify and everything else you can possibly listen to a podcast on. I have been your host, Mike Plant, and thank you to Luke Wakeham.
Goodbye.
Jack Turner.
Bye.
And Andy Lockley.
Goodbye.
Until next time, thanks for listening.